Welcome back, everyone. It's great to have you here. So in today's video, I'm going to be covering some of my favorite camera techniques and photo editing techniques for night sky photography. So we're going to start out with Milky Way photography, and then go into moon and stars, and then finish up with Northern Lights photography. And if you guys would like my free PDF guides, you can download these on your phone and take them out with you, and it gives you step by step all of my camera techniques for all these different types of photography that we're going to cover today. So watch this video as a primer. Make sure to download the guides, which I'll link below the video, and you'll be all set. So let's dive right in with this first image right here. Now, this is a Milky Way image that I took under crescent moonlight. And one of the things that I find to work really well when shooting Milky Way is to wait until there is, say, a 10% or a 15% moon that's just coming up over the horizon, or it's just about to set. So it might be a few degrees over the horizon. And that provides this really nice side light coming in from over here and then just hitting the other side of the image. And you might think, well, you're not going to get as bright of a Milky Way if you shoot under moonlight. But what I find is that the color of the moonlight as it displays on the landscape not only gives you a higher image quality, but it gives you a better overall composition because it's going to light up all these fine details in the landscape that you wouldn't really see otherwise. And that provides a lot more depth to the image. What's also nice about Milky Way is that it's going to allow you to really accentuate more colors than just the core of the Milky Way. So when you look at this specific image, I'm working with blue, and then I'm working with yellow. These colors lie across from each other on the color wheel, so they're complementary and really work well together. So having moonlight provides that warm glow across the landscape, and it can really help out. Now here's the other version that I have. This is after the moon set. So you can see the Milky Way is a lot brighter here. And then I'm just using contrast and silhouettes for the rest of the scene. So you can still get some really good images after the moon set. They're just a completely different kind of image. And you can see here I'm working once again with blues and yellows, but the landscape was just all left in dark because I didn't find any of those fine details in the landscape unless they had moonlight and a little bit of color to look very natural in the final result. So both can be great. It's nice to get up and get set in an area where you know where the moon's going to set. So you can just watch the moon and the sun go across the sky. They follow each other. So if you're out there shooting sunset and you're kind of seeing where the sun's traversing and setting in the sky, that's also where the moon's going to set. The same with the sunrise. They're just going to follow each other. So keep an eye on that when you're out shooting, and it can give a lot better images because you can plan where the light's going to hit, even for night sky photography. So both of these shots, I'm just setting up and I'm using the techniques in that free PDF. So I want to keep the shutter speed short enough where my stars are point-like. You can see that they're very point-like in the sky. They don't have trails behind them. And for my full-frame camera, D810, this is usually going to be about 20, a little bit less, maybe 15 seconds where this works really well. For this shot, I was shooting at ISO 3200, 20 seconds. And then as far as the f-stop goes, I just shot at f/2.8 for this, and I focused about halfway into the image. And what I'm going to notice with f/2.8 with shots like this, I am going to drop off a little bit in sharpness in the foreground, but that part of the foreground doesn't really need to be sharp unless it's really light and contrasted. So whenever I'm shooting moonlight, like that last image, since I have more light in the scene, I'll usually go up to f4, and that gives me a lot more depth of field for the image, and it works out really well. I also have more light, so you can balance back and forth between both of those, and it works really well. So the next image we have here was shot under moonlight, and I often like to do shooting under, say, half moon, quarter moon, when there's no Milky Way in the sky. But if there's going to be Milky Way, I like to keep the moon, say, 15% or less, because any larger, and it just doesn't work well in the overall Milky Way shots. It's just much too bright. But this was under, I think, about a 50% moon, and it was up above out of the screen here. And it's kind of providing a glow or light box effect coming down on the landscape, which can really help to separate out details that you wouldn't see otherwise. So I used the leading lines down here where this stream was running out into the Pacific Ocean. And if this didn't have moonlight on it, this wouldn't have worked well at all because there would have been no color and no contrast in the scene. But due to the moonlight, I can work on the blues and the yellows, the cools and the warms within the image, and it really helps the overall effect. So moonlight can be fantastic, and the setup's a little bit different because you don't really have to use f/2.8 or f4. Often in these kind of shots, I'll shoot at f5.6 or even f8, and I'll still shoot at maybe 20-25 seconds shutter speed, so I don't get the star trails, but you can really crank your f-stop up a lot higher, get a larger depth of field because there's so much more light in the scene. Here's another image. This is a completely different location, and this is also under moonlight, so I'm shooting directly into the moon for this one. And I think this was almost a full moon. So sometimes if you're going to shoot a full moon, it can be really hard to blend it into the image so you can actually see the details of the moon. So sometimes I'll just shoot at f11 or f16 for one exposure to give me this moon star effect. And then I'll take the rest of the image, such as the foreground and the sky, at a much lower f-stop value because I'm only shooting that high f-stop for that moon star effect. But you can see down here in the water, to get this water detail to look like this, I ended up having to shoot, you can see it's really fine detail. I ended up having to shoot, I think, 1 second shutter speed down here just for the water. So you can work some really nice details into your images and give them a lot more texture by mixing up the shutter speeds when you're shooting under moonlight. It also may be hard to see, but there is a moon bow right up here. And I like how this moon bow shape right here mimics the shape down here in the foreground. So I really like this overall image. Some massive sea stacks back here in the Pacific coast. And this was taken on a 5-day backpacking trip. And it was just an awesome time to get out and do some night sky photography. So the last image we'll look at here is a Northern Lights image. And Northern Lights photography can be extremely hard because there's a lot of stuff that has to line up for it to go correctly. Number one, you have to find good aurora activity. And this was shot under a level 9 storm, so extreme aurora activity. The next thing you have to do is find a night without too many clouds. Maybe 50% cloud cover or less can work really well. And then you have to go out there and hope that you can get the shots off in time, especially for storms like this, where the aurora is moving really quickly through the sky. You'll often think, well, I'll just take a 20 or 30 second exposure for Northern Lights photography. But what happens when you do that is all the colors and all the details mix together over that long exposure. So oftentimes when I'm shooting really strong aurora activity, my exposure time will be down in the 1 to 3 second range, because if it's any longer, you lose all of this nice detail because the aurora is moving so fast through the sky. So the lower the activity level, the longer your shutter speed can go. And you just need to balance off your ISO and your f-stop accordingly. And for this one, I shot at ISO probably around 800, and then I was shooting at f/2.8, just focused on these trees. And then from there, I was just adjusting the shutter speed up and down as the aurora moved through the sky at different speeds until I got a shot that I really liked. And shooting at those really low shutter speeds, you can see that the stars are going to be pretty point-like in the sky. Another tip that you guys can check for, notice how around the edge of the composition, the stars are really elongated. Never check for star trails around the edge because the wide-angle lens will distort the stars. If you look in near the center, you can see the stars are very point-like in the sky. And that's going to give you a true reality of what your actual image is going to look like, as far as if your shutter speed is short enough that you can actually capture those point-like stars. So for each one of these images, as far as the photo editing goes, usually there's so much nice color and light if you're shooting under aurora or even a very small crescent moon, that you can just go out and capture your shots, add some basic color, contrast, and other luminosity masking techniques to really control the light. But if you capture it well in the field, you don't have to do a whole lot to make it look really nice. I just try to pick a few different colors to work with, usually cools and warms, complementary colors, blues and yellows. And once I pick those colors, I'll just work them into the shot. And it doesn't have to be bright yellow or bright blue, but just different hues of warm and cool colors can work great for night sky photography. So hopefully you guys enjoyed these tips and got a little bit of those images, and you can kind of brainstorm on what you want to do with your future images. But anybody that would like the complete shooting technique, like I said, I will leave a link below this video. You can check out the free PDFs, and no strings attached. Just grab the PDFs, take them out shooting with you, and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.